when you talk about social impact and social entrepreneurship, if you are an entrepreneur in South Africa, I believe you have the moral obligation to do good, and it positively benefits your business.
Hello and welcome to the Real Good podcast by Neighbor Good, a podcast designed for the next generation of property entrepreneurs and investors, where our guests share with us their strategies, their stories, and their tactics on all things entrepreneurial and property investment related. My name is Murray Clark, and I'm your host, and today we have with us an extra special guest, Kim Whitaker, who is one of the best female founders that I know. She was way before her time when she founded once a hospitality operation which did incredible things going up Kloof Street in Cape Town. She has a love for all things entrepreneurial related. She has a love for hospitality, technology, and organizational culture. Stay tuned for what she has to say.
I want to go back a little bit. You were speaking so well of everything you experienced at once, a company that I just love so much. And I'm certain that your entrepreneurial journey and travel is just going to continue, and once in one way or another is going to be part of it. But balancing that between profit and social impact is super important, especially in the world that we live in today. I think if you don't have some sort of good mission and vision that drives why you exist, you shouldn't really be in business. Tell us how you did that.
So it's a great question. And when you were talking, I immediately thought of Greta Thunberg. Why? Because I remember a few years ago, it was March, I can't remember, 2018, 17, somewhere around there. And I ended up being in Munich at like completely the wrong time. And I was bombarded with like thousands upon thousands of young kids and young adults marching for climate change. And it was completely overwhelming. But for me, it was very visceral because I was like, okay, this is my target audience. Because at that time I was in travel and I was like, I want to serve these people in future. The one thing they really care about is actually doing good for the world and businesses, politicians making change and starting to do it quite rapidly, actually. And so if nothing else, doing good is good for your target audience, which means you make more money, right? Exactly. And that's how I've always explained it to people who are a little bit negative. With Once, what we did quite early on in about 2015, we registered our business with fair trade tourism. And we were so proud at the time. We were the first business to ever pass with 100%. Right? So what does that mean? It means we interrogated our wages and our staff remuneration structure. They look at, are you paying minimum wage or are you paying a living wage? They look at what is the discrepancy between the lowest earning person in the company to the highest earning person in the company. When you are talking about procurement, do you try and favor people who are local businesses that are within 80 kilometers of the premises? It was like super specific. And I loved it because it really could quantify what for me was always just like a gut decision beforehand, you know? So little things like we would pay our suppliers weekly. Why? Because we know they're small businesses and they need the cash flow. Little things like that make businesses good. Now, when you talk about social impact and social entrepreneurship, if you are an entrepreneur in South Africa, I believe you have the moral obligation to do good, and it positively benefits your business. So in 2018, I co-founded a nonprofit called Kwela Women. And Kwela Women had this vision to take young unemployed women, to take them on a learning journey and a 6-month internship in order to get them jobs in the tourism industry. And I think my favorite part of this thing we designed was a 3-week road trip through South Africa. Game lodges, hiking through the Transkei, backpackers hostels, bungee jumping, like the whole big bang shoot. And it was
cool.
fully funded at the time by Booking Cares, which is the CSI project of Booking.com. And we took about 50 young women on this learning journey, and then over 80% were placed in the tourism industry. And until COVID, everyone, was thriving and even getting promotions, etc. And that was an example of how we managed to incorporate a nonprofit that really had its focus on social good and a for-profit. And both entities thrived and coexisted so great together because I guess if you ask any entrepreneur what keeps you up at night, they'll say, oh, staff issues, like, people, like the happiness and contentment of my staff and their growth potential, or unemployment in South Africa. And so in my own little way, those two organizations complemented each other. And I think finally, I spoke earlier about the moral authority to lead. When building an organization, one has to always consider what are our values as an organization, and how do we contribute to our community. And so creating a culture of giving back, of everyone giving back, of every staff member contributing wholly, was something that really we focused on. That last sentence I completely butchered.
It's all good.
Sorry.
You're doing so well.
Cool.
How would you define success?
How would I define success? I think financially would be to provide for my family in a way that makes me sleep well at night. Although, to be honest, I always sleep well at night, so that doesn't really count. But I think provide for my family, have a good work-life balance is really, really important for my personal success. And then I think in terms of business success, like, how does one's business elevate other people? How does one's business magnify other people, make them better, make them think, gosh, if that business didn't exist, like, I would be really sad. Or if that person didn't exist, I would be really sad. Or, so I think success is elevating people, elevating communities, and having a bit of fun while doing it.
That's super important.
Yeah.
I think as an entrepreneur, you start out and it's all about the business and about what you're building, and organizational culture is something that happens possibly organically at best. I think possibly once you have gone around 1 or 2 times, you start thinking about it earlier on. It wasn't something I thought about in the beginning of Neighborhood. This was, for me, the first time I'd actively built and managed a team the size of it is. And I learned on the job, and I continue to learn every day. But you realize how important organizational culture is, and just culture generally in defining vision and mission. You obviously see it, around, and you sort of observe it in all companies. But I can't overemphasize it's important enough. And I know that you definitely agree with me because it's one of your passions. I'd love to understand just your observation about its importance, and then how, startups and entrepreneurs can go about bringing it into their own companies.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say from my first business, I had the luxury of studying marketing beforehand. And so I was quite clear in developing a brand. And when I developed a brand standard or brand value, or what the brand believes in, what the brand doesn't believe in, what kind of coffee does the target audience drink? How old are they? What do they do on the weekends, whatever. Through that process, I started learning more about what my own values are, but more importantly, like what are the values of the type of team that I would take to Mars? Like, who's the kind of person I don't mind getting stuck in an elevator for 8 hours, because there's only a handful of them. Those are my people, and I clearly like their values. So what is it about them? And actually writing that down, and then sort of crystallizing out of that, okay, here are our top 5 values. And then hiring people according to those values. Tell me about a time when you spoke your truth. That was one of our values at once, right? One thing I hate about values is when people say the itty, like honesty, trust, integrity. I'm like, ugh, what the heck does that mean? I don't know. Like, it means different things. Like when you say honesty, I hear speak your truth, right? So tell me about a time when you had to speak your truth.
I love that.
Right?
I'm going to write that down.
That's one example. Or if it's, thirst for learning, in our organization, we value learning and constant improvement. Can you tell me about a time when you embraced that value of thirst for learning? And if they're like, well, while I was studying, I did this and this, or while I was working, I was studying at night. I'm like, great. You're the kind of person who's going to want to like learn and grow through our organization.
I hear you.
And so that's great. So those are the kind of things that I think culture can build. And at once, I mean, people still text me today and it makes, 2 or 3 years later, and they say, I miss working together with you. I miss our team. I miss the time we had together. And that really is amazing. But it just also, it helps the bottom line, right? Because everyone's aligned and everyone, if the carpet's turned over, someone's going to fix it because they are obsessed about the guest experience.
Exactly.
Right? Like they want to make sure that the guest has the most incredible time. So I think obsessive customer service or obsessive guest service really depends on the culture, on your values, on your shared values, your unshared values. And there's a wonderful book actually that I'll recommend to you. It's called Cultureneering.
No way. I haven't heard of it.
So it was written by a guy called Ian Furr.
Okay.
I'm wrong.
I have heard of it.
He has been a mentor to me for many years and is the most incredible man. And read it. It's pretty
Amazing.
good.
I think culture for us is just everything. And I think you see it in people when you get it right, like that energy and the way people interact and take care of each other can be unbelievable. When you get it wrong, it can be absolutely disastrous. And what I have realized is how easy it is when you have an organization, and I wouldn't say that ours is that big or anything, but how even 1 or 2 people that's why hiring is so important, because even 1 or 2 people can change the balance quite quickly in a culture of 100 people, and you've got a few people that change that. How do you go about firing in a position like that? Completely off script, but I'm asking the question because it's important. In a South African context, obviously, there's law and there's CCMA and but as a founder, as an entrepreneur, sometimes we don't get it right all the time. We try our best, and now I'm definitely going to employ some of the tactics that you do in interviews. But how do you go about dealing with people that aren't the right fit?
So that beautiful old age quote of like hire slow, fire fast is one that I used to use.
Okay.
So over the years, we developed better and better tools to make sure that we were hiring the right kind of people. And I would say maybe 5 or 6 years into the business, it really started making more sense and working better. And then it just self-perpetuated positively. My early on experience was that having the wrong person on the team can be a disaster. So we did things like when we were hiring for a role, we would interview 8 or 10 people together and do a boot camp. And we would actually pay them to come in for the day and do like a full day boot camp session where we sent them on, treasure hunts around the city. Okay, the type of person who's going to come and stay at once loves coffee, not just Nescafe and whatever. Like they want to know what roastery is it, what blend, blah, blah, blah. So go and collect 5 coffee cups from 5 different roasteries in Cape Town. Come back, tell me what the owner's name is, tell me whatever.
No way.
And you would see someone, they'd like drag their feet. This is so stupid. And you're like, thanks so much for coming. Here's your money. No. And you got someone else who's like, well, you don't know what. This coffee machine is called Mabel. And and you're like, wow, you're going to be just a great fit, right?
That is next level.
And then we also did polygraph testing for every single staff member who worked with us, including myself, including our co-founders, including our accountant, everyone. So it was like no hard feelings. Every single person has it. And that about 50% of the people didn't make it through.
Wow.
So it wasn't about have you ever done anything wrong? It's about like did you lie in your interview test?
I see.
Right. So yeah, that helped. And then finally, the other thing is we had a 2 or 3 week induction where every single person did every role in the business. So you would come in, if you were our newly appointed CFO, and you would do housekeeping. And then you would do maintenance, and then you would do front of house, and then you would do, concierge and experiences so that you understood the business. And some people were like, I'm not doing housekeeping. Not for me. You're like, wow, that's cool. There's the door.
No way.
I do housekeeping. Like I will clean a toilet if I need to.
Yeah.
And if you're not prepared to do that, that's cool. Just not
and
part
it
of our
just gives
team.
you such a good understanding of the whole business.
It gives you a great understanding of you. Like you can't understand the business otherwise. Yeah.
Mentally taking notes and making sure that we're gonna do this ourselves as well. That's so awesome to see.
Yeah, and the other thing is, if a housekeeper is off sick or you need an extra team member, everyone is ready to jump in.
Yeah, I hear you.
And similarly, if reception's standing empty, I will jump in. A housekeeper can jump in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You took some time off after your journey at once came to an end, and you decided to travel with your family, which is, you're not just a CEO and a serial entrepreneur. You're an incredible mom and wife to your husband, who's also an insane athlete, I understand. I'm excited to hear about how that helped you and the experience that you got from it as a family.
So I think leading up to my exit from Once at the end of 2021, it was many months of negotiation, many months of, writing contracts and et cetera, et cetera. It was a very stressful time. And so I was not very present as a mom and as a partner. And I think as we sort of ended that period, my husband sat me down and he said, Kim, in 2015, my husband and I made a 5-year plan, and we had financial goals and we had personal goals. And we called it our 2020 vision. And our 2020 vision was to get to a certain point and then go on a year's trip to Canada, because he loves mountain biking, I love skiing. And we were like, Canada sounds great. And he said, let's go to Canada. And that was like in October of 2021. And so in three months after that, we literally had packed up, we'd Airbnb'd and home exchanged our home. And we spent 3 months in a little village in British Columbia called Golden.
No way.
And it was unreal. I mean, we literally landed in Vancouver, bought a little, like a 20-year-old car, drove to Golden. And it's wild, man, like minus 27 degrees, like insane snow, just tiny little village with an incredible ski hill. And we just skied like every day with our kids. Our little son, Leo, completely changed. He was quite cautious before.
Was he?
And he just became like super adventurous. And our older daughter, Julia, who's like skateboards and mountain bikes, and she has her own motorbike. Like she's just adventurous, she just lapped it up, loved it. And I think it was an incredible time for us to connect and bond as a family.
Together.
And not be just working all the time.
That's
So
incredible.
I feel very grateful to have done that with them when they were still young. Yeah.
You got back, and we were talking about routines and balancing the macro and the mud. I mean, how do you do that as a CEO when you are running at 15-hour days? And I know perhaps that's a little bit different for you now, but how do you go about managing that when you're running a company, the balance between the macro and the mud?
Yeah. So I'll talk a little bit about routine first, and I'll say that whether I'm working or not working, I am always busy. It's just in my nature. And so in terms of routines, I have a few that get me through. Like, for example, I wake up early. I'm like before 5, I'm awake, which means I also love going to bed early.
Me and you both.
Another thing that helps my routine is I don't drink alcohol. It doesn't serve me. Like, I can't get up early in the morning. So I haven't drunk for about 3 years, and I don't think I will again.
Oh, incredible.
And the other thing is intermittent fasting. I like swear by it. It gives me so much more energy, makes me healthier. I'm just like a better person. I've been doing that for about 3 years.
No way.
And yeah, things that future Kim will do is meditate more. This current Kim, like, I have a reminder on my phone every day and I just don't do it. But I do read a lot, and I carve out time for reading. It's like my little, I love it. And I'm part of a book club, and I love that too. Now, when it comes to the macro and the mud, I think I was very much in the mud until about 2018. And there were 2 things that happened in 2018. Number one, I did an executive MBA at UCT, and I learned about strategy. I met some incredibly dynamic politicians, business leaders, corporate leaders, and I just realized the benefit of elevating oneself and actually using this thing between my ears to its full potential.
Yes.
And so that happened. And the other thing was in 2018, I joined EO, which is Entrepreneurs Organization. Global organization, about 18,000 members. And one of the products or one of the value propositions of EO is something called Forum, where you meet once a month with 4 other entrepreneurs for 4 hours a day, 4 hours. And these are like highly successful entrepreneurs. And you basically work through family, personal life, and business. So your challenges and your highs as well. That process helped me very quickly prioritize my life. Yes, no, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to do this. Yes. So that helped me a lot. And I think when you surround yourself with the right kind of people, you start thinking differently. And so in my forum, I had someone who owned a multi-billion rand fishing company. And I'm like, what? That's insane. What can I learn from you? Right. And then I realized, okay, I've got a lot to learn about like structure, organization. And so naturally one evolves. And so that's how I focus. That's how I keep in the macro and away from the mud. The other thing is that I'm not that good at the mud. I've realized like I actually have a ferocious temper. And so it actually serves me to stay out of operations as much as possible and to really empower people who are excellent at it to do that.
Got you.
So it comes back to culture, comes back to
self-understanding.
Yeah, like, man, if I find myself anywhere close to operations, I need to turn around and run because it's just not my forte.
The guest experience went.
Yeah, just like one-on-one, I guess. There are such incredible people out there, and my role is to empower them.
Completely.
Yeah.
I think, just to end off, I think we both share similar values, and we realize, how important doing good is really for business. I think for us, it will always be that way. Do you have any really cool, good stories of anyone in your life, business or personal, that are bringing good to the world that you might want to share?
So I would say that the Bulungula project in the Eastern Cape is something that I've admired for maybe 20 years. And they just keep evolving and getting better. And I don't know if you know the story.
No, what do they do?
So it started off with this guy called Dave and his wife Rejan, and they were kind of walking down the coast of the Transkei maybe 20 years ago and saw this beautiful like river mouth with a village. They were like, this would make a great place to build like an eco hotel, backpackers. So they got the licensing from the local community and said, look, we're going to run it. And then over a few years, the community will own it. And so maybe 10 years ago already, they left and the community now runs it. And they've started a program called the Bulungula Incubator Project, which is kind of adjacent to the lodge. So they've got Montessori schools, they have like computer labs, they have kids like going to university. This lodge is like insanely beautiful, and it creates an income stream for the community. There's electricity, there's running water, there's a road. Like when my first time I went there wasn't even a road. It was like it was completely washed away. There was no tar road, and they've just created so much joy and so much opportunity in this one place. And it's catalyzed by tourism. It's well supported. It makes sense. It's regenerative. So I think that would be my favorite.
It's an incredible story and an awesome one to end on. Thank you so much for being on our podcast. You're an inspiration to us all. And I'm looking forward to seeing the next chapter of your journey. And we're obviously wishing you all the best.
Thanks. And you guys too.
Thank you, Kim.
Stay good.
Thank you. We will.